Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Thank you. So welcome. I think it's just time to start. There are still some people who will be joining, but let me introduce this seminar of coding and programming, basic and not so basic, some advanced knowledge that we'll be able to learn in this seminar that is within the European Union funded project Education for Technological Literacy and Inclusion. This is the last seminar for students. The topic is coding and programming. We already had a parallel session for lecturers. Now we are going to focus on students. And the session will unfold in 4 different days. The first day, today, we'll have 2 lecturers, Mr. Bakshish Sachar and Gerson Nazareth, both of them with good knowledge on IT technology, and both of them with experience on teaching and passing on their knowledge to students. They are all based in India. Mr. Bakshish Sachar is based in Bombay. He's working in, he's a former IIT Bombay student, and also he's teaching there. And Gerson, he's based in Goa, but he's also, apart from all the experience, more than 14, 15 years of experience on IT technology, also in teaching, both in Canada and now in Goa. He's also quite well versed in these matters. And they will, in 3 days, they will try to explain the basics. And the dream is also to ensure that you learn something, okay? So today, maybe the sessions will be more general, more basic introduction, basic concepts of both on coding and programming. Tomorrow, they will go a little bit more in depth. And you need to be ready because by Wednesday, they would like to have a final project exercise. If someone attending the seminar is not having a computer today, I will request that tomorrow comes with a computer so that they can follow all these exercises they will be trying to engage us with. And the last day, also we'll have another scholar, another lecturer, that is Mr. Ibon Aramburu, who will focus his teaching on automated extraction of data, trying to link data mining and data science with this coding and program. So I'm going to leave the floor to Mr. Bakshish Sachar. He has already been teaching with us for some time, and I know that he will do a great job as he has done in previous sessions. So off to you, Bakshish. You can start and deliver your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Bell ma'am, for your kind introduction. I'm really excited and looking forward to the session. And I hope I'm audible to everybody.
Yes.
Great. Good to know about that. And really excited to speak to all the students, help them understand and learn few things about data science that I have personally learned over the years, and also partnering on this with Gerson, who has also been somebody I'm personally also learning a lot from. So yes. So before we start with the session, I'd like to share a short two-question survey, which is basically to understand everybody's basic, like if you have heard a few terms or not. So I'm sharing the link of it in the chat. So I request everybody to have a look at the link. And there are two questions that I've asked, and I'll also share my screen with regards to those two questions so that we can together have a look at them. Is it opening for everybody? Yes.
Yes.
Great. I'll share my screen as well. Yes. So the question is, where would you place yourself in data science proficiency on a scale of 1 to 10? So I see that three people have mentioned that they are beginner, while I believe others are joining in. And if you want to open it, you can also use the menti.com website where you can use the code and then give your answers on that. Mm, is it working for everybody?
I'm sorry, it disappeared, the link that you sent initially.
Okay, I've sent
Thank you.
another link.
Thank you. That's fine.
Yes, and the code, this is the code that can be used. Yes. Great. I see there are a lot of people who are beginners. Um, if we go to next question, so if there are people who have heard the term Python as a data science language,
Hello.
okay,
Sorry, it disappeared. Can you send again?
okay,
Thank you.
Yes, I'm looking for a job.
Didn't
Ma'am,
receive.
actually, I'm in a session. Can you call after
You
some
just
time, ma'am, if
okay.
it's okay to you?
hmm.
Actually, right now I'm in a session, so can we discuss after some time, ma'am, please, in the evening, if it's okay to you?
Okay. I think we've got
So,
some
yeah,
responses.
but this is
We
around
can
6,
now
ma'am?
slowly, yeah, we can slowly now get into the session.
Uh,
So
how
I'll
about 6, ma'am?
just
It would be perfect, I guess, from my
I
side.
reshare my
sent
So,
it,
screen.
but you didn't receive
I'll
my
be
answer. I'm
available
sorry.
between 5:30
Because okay,
or,
I don't know if this
Yeah,
is mine or not.
yes,
I think the screen is there, so it will not get to know if you have shared or not. But I've received some responses, so I think we can start with the, the lecture now. Yes. Is the other slides visible?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Bellin, ma'am. So, like, shall I also? I shall start with the. So, hello everybody. We are in the first session for Education Technology for Education Literacy program, as part of which we'll be covering data science. And today's lecture is Introduction to Data Science. And there are a lot of terminologies that are used in data science often, and which are used interchangeably. That's why the title of this lecture is Methods of Data Science, AI, ML, DS. Would anybody like to unmute and tell me the full form of AI or ML or DS? Any of these three, AI or ML? or you can also type it in the chat. Please feel free to interrupt me if you have any doubts also. So yes, moving forward. So AI is artificial intelligence, ML is machine learning, and DS, as you all know, is data science. And these terms are used interchangeably often in the world of data science, but there are key differences in these terms, which I'll try to highlight on. So, yeah. So, yes. Um, so, AI is basically to make machines intelligent, while machine learning is how those machines learn. And they are used very interchangeably, but at the same time, there are certain differences in all of these. And data science is basically on identifying what are the actionable insights in any particular domain. So, as you can see in the slides, artificial intelligence would include a lot of machine learning, but artificial intelligence is a bigger subset or a bigger Venn diagram than machine learning. So, as you can see, artificial intelligence includes linguistics, vision. So, when I say vision, when it's written vision, I'll say that you can understand vision through the self-driving cars that we see often these days. That a lot of car manufacturers like Tesla, or there are ADAS systems, which are basically systems that are made where cars can take decisions on their own based on what they see, what the vision that the camera is able to see. So these are smart cameras and AI enabled systems which allow the machine to understand that in front of the road there is a car to, or there is a red light. That's why the car needs to stop. Or let's say there is a rock in the middle or a tree in the middle. That's why AI tells the car to stop. Similarly, this is also used highly in medical systems. So, for example, how AI system can have a look at the X-ray or any medical report, depending from system to system, and then suggest decisions to doctors or medical professionals with regards to that. And similarly, all of this is also used a lot in textual data. So how linguistics, this is how linguistics come into being. And when we say linguistics, there's another term that is often used in data science or artificial intelligence, which is called natural language processing. So I'll give one more example on this. So I think some of you would have heard of smart speakers or smart audio systems which can hear us. And let's say there is a device called Google Home. So, as a Google Home device, it can basically listen to what I say. So, let's say I give a command to Google: Hello, Google, play a song for me. So, the Google would then play a song. That is basically AI based mechanisms which can help Google to understand which song I want to play. Or let's say I want to put up an alarm. So I tell it to Google that I need an alarm for 7 a.m. to wake me up. So these systems are highly AI enabled systems which basically work on language. And through language, they understand the linguistics of it. And the linguistics would mean different languages, which could be English, Spanish, Portugal, or Portuguese, sorry, or so many other languages based on the language that is being used in the system. Similarly, as you can see, machine learning has a few technical terms. I'm not going to get into the details of it, but just to know, these technical terms are like support vector machines, decision trees, deep learning models, KNN. So all these things will be covering in the next few sessions. Not all of them, but some of them, because we don't have, I mean, we'll have limited time. So we'll try to focus on some of them and try to help you understand. Then when it comes to data science, primary thing that we are trying to cover here, so you'll see that with a lot of data that we get in the next one of the sessions, we'll be doing some visualizations also. So those visualizations would mean basically looking at the data and making some sense of it so that we can take decisions on the data that we have. So These decisions could be for, let's say, decisions on common things like planning decisions, traffic, anything that the data is on. So the data will guide us to the decision that we want. And that data is basically, before we do any sort of visualizations, we also do data cleaning, which is, like mentioned here, is data preparation. And data preparation would then certainly like involve a lot. We'll be touching upon these things as well. But these are like the key differences, but yet all of this works together to ensure that we are able to make the most of the data and come to a actionable point. So I've also will be sharing the slides with you. We'll also be sharing you'll have the reference to the article as well to have a look at. So any questions till now by anybody? Okay,
No, clear. Thank you.
yeah, I think we can move forward. Yes. So these are again some of the examples with reference to how these are defined by different set of experts in the field. So artificial intelligence. So this Alan Turing had worked on Turing test. You can basically learn more about the Turing test. It was basically a test that was designed by him, and it has been renowned across the world. And that's where the AI systems had started back in 1950. Now, what we see now. So the beginning of it was long time back, and basically it's the science and engineering towards having intelligence machines, especially as it's written there, the computer programs. Those computer programs basically help us function on different set of problems that we face on a daily basis, and a subset of which is machine learning, which is basically using algorithms and basically in simple terms, imagine that we are teaching a machine something, and based on what we teach the machine, that is how the machine would react and perform actions on what we are teaching. For example, if we are teaching the machine to do a particular action A based on the data that they receive. So, for example, like earlier I had given how car functions. So, like if the car is taught through vision that if there is a rock, if there is another car, if there's any person on the way, then the car needs to apply brakes. That is what basically a system would learn, and it is also based on how so as you can see, the way that humans learn gradually, and basically working on the accuracy of it as well, so that over the particular different times systems are being used, and then the machine is able to understand how those systems need to work. Now coming to the third aspect, which is data science. So data science is heavily math and statistics focused, where a lot of data is being used to work and to find and uncover some insights which can help an organization. So we'll also be working on a data set. So that will give you some more insights on what are the different kind of systems that could be. There could be data sets on different things. For example, data sets on accidents, data sets on different railway stations, data sets on, let's say, the amount of renewable energy that is being produced and the amount of emissions that are produced. So, how those things can be used for any organization, any country, any individual, any city to take decisions based on the data that they have. In the field of large decision making, it's sometimes also called evidence based decision making. So the evidence is gathered through the data that is being collected, processed, analyzed, and based on those analysis, a particular recommendation could be drawn or made. So these are recommendations that we can have for ourselves, and even recommendations that we can give to other people. Let's say, based on the data that you have, you want to recommend something to your government or to your organization, to anybody. So that is how data science uncovers through use of maths and statistics. Moving on to the next slide. Yes. Yeah, so basically this is also to talk about how it can differ from different individuals' perspective or different theoretical standpoints. So, as you can see in the central figure by AutoKitty, it's there that the larger Venn diagram of data science encompasses artificial intelligence, and artificial intelligence encompasses machine learning, which further encompasses deep learning. In one of the next slides, you'll also see that machine learning could be of various different types. I'll give one simple example. There's a particular machine learning type known as supervised machine learning and unsupervised machine learning. So, what we mean by supervised is we give the data to the machine in a particular way such that we want the machine to think the way we want it to think, which is more directed way thinking for the machine. Whereas when we look at unsupervised, that is more to understand how machines would think, and that's a different stream altogether. But not going into the much details of it. So yes, this is all very much interrelated, but at the same time, there are different ways in which this functions. Moving on to the next slide. Yes. So yes. So as I was talking about, so as you can see, there are like this is also again from the same standpoint that first column of intelligence that is more focused on artificial intelligence and how artificial intelligence can help overall. So as you can see, some smart tasks. So for example, how AI systems can use for problem solving or reasoning, decision making, and those systems are also based on the data that is being fed to the entire programming. So this is basically at the end based on the data that is being fed for intelligent systems, and those systems then take. So when I say data, the example that's given below that is of sensory interface. So the data could be in form of text, in form of audio speech, in form of images, in form of video. It could even be just numbers speaking something. So any form of numbers could be a form of data for the systems to work on. And similarly, as you can see in the next column, supervised learning. So when we say supervised, these are some examples of supervised learning. So one could be like classification, then regression or time series. So we're not going into the details of it, but knowing the term in itself also helps to know that what possible could be. So for example, classification could be how do we in different categories a machine is taught to classify something. So it could be based on color, based on numbers, based on anything, based on the basically the data that is being fed to the system. And as you can see below that, we have unsupervised learning. So unsupervised learning is possibly can also be used for anomaly detection. Anomaly detection could be that data is being given, and the machine is being taught to identify how the system is reacting differently from the way it should. So similarly, like there's also reinforcement learning where basically we are trying to direct the system at the same time, basically reinforcing what we would like the system to be like. It is slightly different from how supervised learning is, but yes, it's good to know these terms so that later on when you want to go deeper into the field of data science and AI and machine learning, you can learn through these terms and just get a deeper understanding of how the entire system functions. Moving on to the third one, which is data science. So, as I mentioned, so it's about ensuring that we are able to understand a problem, and this is a stepwise system. So, understanding the problem And after that, the second step is so data acquisition. For example, if we want to have a data, collect data, so we need to know what is it that we need to collect. And to know what do we want to collect, it's important to understand the problem. Step one, what is the problem? Then once the problem is identified, data which is required needs to be acquired. And once the data is acquired, it's not necessary that the data acquired would be clean. That's why a data preparation is required. And the data preparation further then would help us in doing analysis. That's where the one example. So this is just one type of analysis, which is exploratory data. So exploratory data analysis includes a lot of visualizations and tools that are being used, but that's just a very good term to know, and like it can give you a lot of results based on how you want to use it. So like I mentioned, then moving on, so the same data can be used for modeling in a way that that data can is able to tell us what is it that it can even help us to predict models prediction of it as well, which is more a subset in the machine learning interface, but at the same time it can be used for data science, and such that we are able to deploy models and maintain them and use it for long term to ensure that the data is being collected is used in the decision making. Decision making is very important because if the data that we are collecting is not helping us make decisions, then we would be required to make the modifications, the mid-course modifications in the data, and understand it better such that we're able to ensure that some key change is happening through that data. Last, we see the data lifecycle management. So this is the monitoring and sustaining the data aspect. Moving on to the next slide. Um, these are some myths. But before this, anybody has any doubts or any questions till now? Anything that anybody would like to ask?
Mm.
No.
Go ahead, Mashish.
Okay. We'll now move forward. So these are some of the myths. So one myth is that for data scientists, it's important that every data scientist needs to know coding. It's not something that is basically a must. Not all the data scientist codes these days. A lot of times there is coding support available online, so that also helps to make the job of data scientist easy. But it is good to know, it is a good quality to know coding, but even if you don't know how to code, you can still make use of the information out there and understand the logic behind a particular data process that is being performed. Yes, so don't be scared if you don't know coding. It's not very difficult, and you will slowly learn it. We will try to introduce you the concept of coding, but at the same time, you'll once you practice it and learn it on different projects, you'll be able to learn it further. Next, so another myth that data scientists and developers are more or less the same. So there are they perform different set of tasks and they support each other, but they are not the same. So like when people use the term developer, so it's a little different from data scientist. uh, Next, data scientists don't need to know how to gather their own data. So it is like because at the end, data scientists work on data, but it is equally important for them to know how to gather data, because that way they can help make better decisions for the organization with regards to any problem that they're solving or working on. So that's where data scientists can suggest or make recommendations to the team to make modifications in the data collection process or any new data that needs to be collected. Yes, moving on. Yeah, as long as predictions are accurate, it doesn't matter how they're generated. Again, predictions are not everything. The process is equally important. So when I say process, it means what is the methodology or what is the mechanism that is being used to make the predictions. So there are different models that are used. Each model has its own pros and cons. Depending on that, it basically would impact the entire process of it. So it's not that predictions are everything. The process of those reaching those predictions are equally important. Moving on, data science projects start with data. So, like we've discussed a lot about data, but before we even get into data, as I was mentioning, it's important to know the the knowledge which precursors the data. So it could be what data to be collected, how to be how should we collect the data, what is the timeline of data collection, and several other things that are equally important when it comes to data collection. And data collection is before getting the data. So, yes, equally important. Um, so, another one. So, data science is only useful to companies that work with big data. No, data science is useful for people all across different domains. It need not be only applicable to big data. It can even be small data. Small data is not a particular term per se, but any data. It could be data for your house, for your let's say data on your weekly or monthly spending, how much you're spending. If you track it, you can use it to understand which are the months you are spending more or spending less, and can help you in saving. That is your own personal data collection. Your collecting data of your own spending. These days, there are a lot of AI tools which basically read our the messages for the money that if is credited or debited in their account, and they do it for us. But if we start doing it our own self, that way we can also do an analysis, and you can even use simple Microsoft Excel or any other tool to do this. Yes. Moving on. Um, Data science encompasses predictive modeling alone. So, like data science is much more than predictive modeling. Prediction is a part of it, which a lot of it is covered with machine learning based models and systems. But data science is much beyond machine learning or predictive modeling. It can encompass a lot of things, some of which we discussed and we'll be discussing in the next few sessions that we're gonna have. Yes. Moving on. Larger data equates to more accurate results and prediction. It may not be always true that more data will give more accurate results or predictions, because that would help us having basically more data to make sure that we're able to ensure that we have a higher sample. But more data could also mean outlier data points, outlier or extreme data points. When I say extreme data points, let's say that in a class of students, there are people scoring marks in a range of out of 100 people scoring between 50 and 100. But if there are students who are scoring less than 50, those are those would be outliers, and that can change the final results and predictions because those are extreme values. So that is the way that we can understand it. Next. Data science is not another name for computer science. Computer science is a very vast domain. Data science happens to be something, a domain which gets a lot of its theories and concepts through allied domains in computer science. So those are not, these two are not the same, because data science is focused on the data, while computer science is encompasses a lot of other concepts as well. Yes. Last but not the least, a lot of people have fear of doing maths. So even if, like, in your school or at your university, even if you are not good with maths, you can still succeed at data science if you are able to understand the concepts, practice them, do projects with them. We'll try to do projects in the next 4 days as well, but in your own capacity. After the lectures are over, you can use online resources to basically practice yourself in data science. And don't worry if you're not good at maths. It's okay. Basically, maths is about numbers. Data science is not just about numbers. Data science could be of about text, about audio, about video, about so many other things. So you don't have to be good at maths to do data science. I hope this helps, because a lot of time as students we have fear of maths. So you need not have fear of maths. You can still learn and excel in data science. Moving on to the next slide. Yes. So the part with this, basically, I would like to end it with the quote by Ronald Coase, that if you torture the data long enough, it will confess to anything. And this was given to him for discovery and clarification of the significance of transaction cost and property rights, or the institutional structures and function of the economy. Yes, so I hope this gives a lot of clarity to the students here, and I can name some of the resources. And in the next 5 minutes, I'll hand it over to you, Gautam. So I was here in the earlier slides. Just go back. Yes. So, like, the reason I've opened this slide is basically these terms. You can write these down, or also some of the portals will be sharing the resources as well. But so there are a lot of portals that are available on the internet to get some data. I'll meanwhile open a few so that a lot of you who are interested in data can also find these data portals to get the data and to learn about the projects. So say, yes. So as you can see on my screen, I have Kaggle open. So Kaggle, I'll share the link of this website with everybody on the chat as well. This is where a lot of data sets are being shared. Methods to work on the data is also shared. And also we also have a tool called Trinket, which Gerson will be introducing to everybody soon. I'm just sharing the link as well. This will be helpful for everybody to start with your journey of data science. So in Kaggle, if I write, let's say, house price, so this would give me notebooks and data points for anything that's required. And if I open it, it would have the entire work being done already. So you can see data pre-processing. This is some code. Please don't get scared looking at the different, like, red color and different colors here, clearing the data set. So this can help you understand, like, loading the data, establishing a baseline, um, feature utility scores. These are some technical terms, but don't get scared. Creating features. So this is a stepwise guide that you can find a lot of information from. And any topic that you're interested, this is like one of the visualization being done. We will also be learning visualizations in the next few sessions that we will be doing. So you can create such diagrams very easily. This is something which the data science visualizations does and help us in taking decisions. Just target encoding. Let's not get into the details of it, but I just wanted to introduce you to the website Kaggle, for which the link is shared. And I would like to now hand it over to you, Gerson. You can introduce uh, the Trinket website and how Trinket functions so that everybody can learn from that. Gerson, can you hear me?
Yes, yes. One, may I ask you a question? Make it once before Gerson is introduced,
Yes,
because
yes.
when I listen to you and you said rightly, and I can see from my experience of having people working in different sectors. At the end of the day, some years ago, what we had in common was that we were all working in a computer. Nowadays, whatever sector you are working in, everybody's working with data. The data has become like the commodity, that we need. I don't know. So if I were in a student, most of the people are students. What would you suggest? How to enter in this world? Do you need to do a master's on data science? Do you need to just search by yourself on the net? Maybe people don't have that time. How to guide the young students to take the right path? We don't know if it is too early to explain that, and maybe at the end of the seminar you will be able to. But if I were a 25 years old boy or girl, I will be a little bit lost, knowing how shall I, let's say, upgrade my skill, my future. If I am a doctor, I don't know, economist, I am an architect, I am any field, because we all need to deal with this, no? What would you suggest? How would you start or interact in this field?
Okay. That's a brilliant question, I must say, and this is something that personally I asked when I was attending one of the sessions on data science in my university. So to start off with, I would say the first step should be that one should be open to learning data science without fear of being good with maths, because I had this fear in my school of maths, but I had overcome that and I realized that how data science need not be all about maths always. And with regards to the resources or any information, so in this, as part of the program, we will be sharing a list of resources, which would include a lot of links to different online courses, websites. We also have, there are a few books, not too long, but just to basically understand the concepts through the books. So you can even make use of those. There are a lot of free resources available on YouTube and even on platforms like Trinket, where people you can sign in for free and learn data science through through experts in this domain, and you have a list of courses. Similarly, there are platforms like I would say EDX, Coursera, and many platforms that are there. Even a starting point in data science could be to basically make yourself a good somebody who's good with Excel, because Excel has a lot of basic things. Even there is basic level of coding or formula writing that's there in Excel, Microsoft Excel. Or even like we also have Google Sheets, which can help understand how different formulas can be applied, how we can use different tools. I'd say that we can give some examples, things like basic stuff, things like pivot tables, creating dashboards on Excel, also using concepts like conditional formatting, data validation. These are things that are available freely as open sources on the internet. And Excel is a very useful tool to start off with. And as part of this program, we'll be doing the basics of Python as well. So that will give an understanding of what Python is, how it can be used, and for this would be a gateway to understanding data science through these resources. The next step would be to spending more time with it. And one thing that, like, my last comment on this would be, try to do as many projects or as many I'd say, like, projects with some particular outcome that you can think of before starting. The outcome could be in form of visualization, it could be in form of any insight that you want from the data, and how to get to data. I mean, you would have a lot of other other sources as well. As I think many of you would be familiar with Eurostat. Eurostat is also a major uh, website for all the data needs, and alongside that you have Cadwell and so many other sources. So we will be sharing the links for these data sources, and you can use them. I have shared Eurostat as well here. I hope I was able to answer your question.
Yeah, I think it's clear. Okay, so now we pass on to Gerson, and I would like to remind everyone that these sessions are recorded. So all the students can and will be uploaded in our website, will be uploaded also in our YouTube channel. So any concept or anything that you want to go back to it, you will always be able to access later. So anything that can be, cannot be so clear, or you need some clarification. I know that both of the lecturers also will be ready to answer your questions once the seminar is over. But now, Gerson, most welcome. We leave it on to you. So in few minutes also, many more students will be joining. So, but you can start the session. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Darren. Thank you, Bakshish, for the introduction. Let me, Bakshish, can you stop sharing so we can use the whole screen for videos? And if you could turn on your webcam, that would be nice. It would be nice to see eye to eye contact. If you can, that would be nice. So a little bit about me. My name is Gerson Nazareth. I'm so happy to be here and to spend this time with you. And I hope that you all learn something. Let me little introduction about myself. So I was born in India, and I spent about 20 years in Canada, and I worked in the software industry, starting from the beginning as a junior developer all the way to the top. Right now, I'm the CTO of a startup here in India, and so I've got lots of experience with programming, with mentoring professionals throughout their programming and coding professional careers. And then recently, about 5 years ago, I started teaching. So I've been teaching now for 5 years, and so this is what I do quite a lot. Not full time, but I do it quite a lot. So I like to teach Python. Most of my students are kids, but I also teach university students and adults as well. So that's a little bit about me. My style is more hands-on and engaging, and so I often like to ask questions, and I would encourage everyone to respond. Unmuting and speaking would be wonderful, but you could also answer in the chat. Okay, and sometimes I often ask for naming things or suggestions or things like that. Feel free to use the chat box a lot. That's what the chat is for. The other thing I'd like to mention is language. When I say language, I don't mean programming language. I mean English and other languages should not be a barrier for you to learn. So even though I'm speaking English and this is an English course, if English is not your first language, I would encourage you to ask questions in your native language or in English in the best way you can, and don't worry about making mistakes. We all make mistakes. I do have some knowledge of Portuguese and less knowledge of Spanish. So, but I don't trust my Portuguese and Spanish. I will be using some. We can use translators and things like that, right? I'm not sure. I think on Zoom you can do this, but if you can enable live captions, and then I think everyone can set it into your own language. So you would get live captions in whatever language you're comfortable with. So see if you can do that. I think it's show live captions, and then I think in Teams you set your preferred language. Anyway, so one thing I'd like to ask everyone a question. So your name, I see names have, many of you have tags on your boxes, but some don't. And then I think most of you are students. But if you're not a student, your whatever your job is or whatever, and then whatever line you're in, whether you're in science or math or statistics or arts or whatever. If you can just share there, I'd just like to get an idea of uh,
Yeah.
the group, right?
Yes, and one thing you may need to take into consideration is that sometimes it's the teacher who is here in the computers teacher, and the full
Yeah.
classroom may be in
Yes,
that
yes.
attending the session. So
Okay, and,
that
and,
is
and,
a
and
thing.
if that is the case, then wonderful. Then don't give me a name, give me the university or the class or whatever. And yeah, I'd like to see the chat room really get used up. Otherwise, it's going to be a really boring session if all I'm going to do is talk for 1-2 hours and there's no interaction, right? So so feel free to just put in there where you're from, what your line is. Come on, who's going to very good. Architecture, nice. Music and theater, nice. I play some guitar. I like some music. Estonia, okay. Policy sector. Navarra, I think that's Spain. Nice. Good. So we've got some. Keep them coming, and don't feel shy to share what questions and things that I bring. Okay. So we've got about 8 minutes now, and then I think we'll take a short break, and then we have a next session. Is that right? I think that's the plan.
Yes, I think now, Gerson, in 5 minutes, there will be a class of another, I don't know how many, maybe 100 people joining. So most of them, they will be in the business, studying business.
Business, okay. Lucia has a question. What's your question? Raise your hand.
Hello, sir. Good
Yes.
evening, sir. India. Thank you so much, sir, for your response. Sir, actually, I want to ask from you, sir, because I'm extremely, for me, it's extremely complicated if we come to Python. So could you please me some tips or some strategies? How can I get the logic of Python?
Logic of Python. Okay. So I am going to, so once we get back, I will start a bit and then we'll take a break. And then I'm going to go to the very beginning of Python, right? The very, very basics. So you don't need to know any previous knowledge of any kind of programming. So I'll start from the very beginning. And so the way I've structured the course, I'm going to be teaching on Trinket. Bakshish has already shared the link. I'll share it again. You would all need to create an account there, which is free and it takes 2 minutes. And then there'll be a class code. I will share that link, and I'll share it again when we come back from break because we're going to get more students. And so so the way it works is it's a self-paced course. You can actually you can go through it, and all of the explanations are there. And then I was told that we have a lot of students from Spain and Portugal and some other places as well. And so I've all of the explanations are in English and Portuguese and Spanish. Okay, so if you get lost while I'm explaining, you can go refer to the course and pick up. If you're ahead of the class, maybe you already know some Python and you're feeling that it's too slow, you can go ahead and go to the assignments and the exercises and the drills and feel free to do that. And whatever works, right? If I say something in English and you don't understand or you don't know what I'm saying or whatever, you can refer to that. I will be following that format. So I will be going from beginning to end, and so you can follow along from there. And I don't think it makes sense if you're going to get a lot of students joining in 5 or 10 minutes. There's no sense in starting now. But I would like to introduce everyone to give a basic introduction of Python and programming languages, and then we'll start with the real Python at the end, right? And yeah, but
Yeah, let's have a break now of 5 minutes. And in 5 minutes, we will all join together. Okay?
okay, okay. So we will meet back in 5 minutes.
Thank you
See
so
you.
much.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I think it's time to start. People have started joining. So we are going to start the second session on this seminar on coding and programming. Person in charge, I have already introduced him, is going to be Gerson Nazareth. He has already introduced the session, and now he will unfold it, knowing that we will all learn. He wants to make it this interactive, so I have requested all your teachers, all your professors to help you and to come also with your computer. I hope you did, but if it's not today, for tomorrow's session, I will please ask any one of you to have any device, an iPad, a computer, something that can help you to learn, put into practice what you are learning. And the second advice I wanted to give you that Gerson already has announced and has reminded us in the previous introduction is that if someone has any issue with the language, today's day, that is not a problem. If you go to in the screen you are seeing in your computer, you go to more, and within more, language and speech, there is a session that can say put live captions. Okay, so you can, apart from understanding what he's saying or listening what Gerson is saying, you will be able to understand what in writing what he is saying. So that will help you also to your understanding. So I hope you can make the best of it, because we have a real true expert with us, that he's also expert not only in programming, he's expert in teaching how to do the coding and programming. So I wish the best to him, and I wish the best to all of you, so that we can all learn from him. Thank you, Gerson. So it's up to you. People keep joining, but I will keep admitting them. So it's up to you. You start, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Darwin. Okay, so I have shared in the chat, I've shared the link again to Trinket. So I'd like everyone to sign up for an account. And if you're joining as a school, so this is not per school or per classroom, but this is per individual. Okay, so every single one of you sign up for this account. If you don't have a computer, then this class is recorded, so you can go and listen to it later. Ideally, if you have a choice, it's nice if you have a keyboard, because programming involves typing, right? That's one of the things about programming, and it is very difficult unless your tablet has an external keyboard. It's not really the best option, right? Okay, so I'm going to share it again. It is so it's Trinket .io is the name of the website. Sign up for a free account. It should just take you 2 minutes. And then there's my class link. If you click on that, you should go in there. You should get into the class. Now, one of the things I will mention is that I created this, I made a copy of, so I've been teaching using Trinket for a while now. I made a copy of it and I changed some things here. One of the main things I changed was I made it multilingual. Let me share my screen and you can see what I mean. Okay, I have to restart my team, so I'll be back in a minute. But sign up for the account and then join the class. So far, I haven't received no one has joined yet. So please join the class. I will be back in 1 minute.
But I got 3 options. I don't know which one I have to link in. One is a turtle in space. That one.
Oh, I was mute. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Can everyone see my screen? I'm trying to share my screen. It doesn't seem to be working.
No, we cannot.
Still no?
Oh, no, I can. We can enter in your but we don't see the screen. I can see. I have entered in your project.
Okay, but you haven't seen the screen. Okay.
No. Okay, there is here. Is that what is Python? Module 1? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, got
Okay.
it, got it. As people can keep joining, I'm going to keep sharing in the chat, okay? So people who come a little bit later, they can also join. Yeah, you can start, yes. You are muted again.
Can you see my screen now?
Yes, we can see.
Okay. Okay, good. Okay, so let me refresh my screen and see if anyone has joined. There you go. Okay. Okay, good. So let's begin now. So so we've got modules. We've got about 8 or 9 modules, 10 modules, and each of these modules have English, Spanish, and Portuguese. And uh, if your language is not one of these, you can always use Google Translate or something and translate it there. I've tried to use a simple language, so it's easy to understand. Um, but I won't be showing this screen all the time because that is something you can open and you can read yourself, right? But I will be going through this in this order. So if you want to follow along, maybe have this on a separate tab and then watch the screen. Okay. Cool. So I'm going to leave that there and some more things about that, right? So some of these, if you look on the left, some of these are actually explanations, right? And some of these actually have Python code in here itself. So you can actually run Python code from within here. So you don't need to install anything on your computer. Okay, so saves a lot of time. There are some assignments. Okay, so an assignment is something where you would do the homework and then submit. Okay, so I don't see that because I'm an instructor, but as a student, you'll be able to submit assignments. You'll be able to ask me questions. I'll be able to correct assignments, correct homework, and we can go back and forth. I can provide feedback and so on. Okay, so I'd encourage you, if you want to make the most of this, to go ahead and do all of the assignments. Okay, and it doesn't have to be today, tomorrow, and the day after. It can be after that as well. I will I will I will provide feedback even after the course is over. Okay. And then there's a very final fun project which is about the football the 2024 soccer quiz, right? So this exercise is to make a quiz program on some questions, right? And I picked football, but it can be about whatever you like, right? It can be anything, and the goal is to make a computer program in Python, which is a quiz app, and you can ask questions and get a score at the end. Okay, so that's the final project for this session. Okay. That being said, now I can move on. So I've got some tabs open, and I'll go through each of these quickly. Python.org is the main Python website, and I'd like to point out one thing here. You don't need to go to this website just watch. So there are different versions. You see Python versions over here. There's 3.14, and so on. And then if you if you scroll really low, you'll see Python 2 as an option as well, right? Now, there are some programs that still use Python 2 and some use Python 3. And in Trinket, if you're running something and it doesn't work, right? It doesn't work. It should work, but it doesn't work. It's probably because you're using Python 2. Okay, so and let me know, and I'll show you how to fix it. Right. So that's the only thing I'd like to mention. If something should work and it doesn't work, then it's probably that. Okay, then I have another tab here called Google Colab, and this is what we're going to do tomorrow. And this is more of the intermediate and advanced stuff. So we're going, once we know the basics of Python, then we're going to go to the next level. So I won't spend too much time on that right now. I will talk more about Google Colab later today. We've got Visual Studio Code. So this is a professional tool.
Excuse me, someone has to be unmuted.
So if you have a question, feel free to raise your hand or unmute, but if not, then please mute. Okay, so this is what professional coders use. If you want the real thing, right? What actual coders use, it's this one, Visual Studio Code. You don't need to download it for this course. I'm just letting you know that it's available and it's on all platforms. And then there is Thorny. So Thorny is the main tool I will be using today to teach Python. And the reason why is because it's created with the purpose of teaching, right? It's for instructors to teach. And it's very basic, but it has some features that Trinket doesn't have because it's meant for teaching, right? So if you're teaching, if you ever teach Python in the future, this is my favorite tool. And you'll see why as I continue with the course. And then of course there's Trinket. Okay, so I'll show you on Thorny, but you follow along on Trinket and run all the code. Any code you run will be on Trinket. Okay? So with that, I'm going to open up Thorny, and it looks different than Trinket, but it's the same thing. You write your code here, and then you run the code. Okay, and the same thing in Trinket. If you go to any of these things, there is this place here where you put in your code, and then you press this. Everyone knows this button, right? It's the same one that you see on audio players and MP3 players and all that. It's the play button. So you're playing the code. Okay, so you write your code and then run it. Okay, you can see here that Thorny uses 3.10, and Trinket, I'm not sure what Trinket uses, but it is 3, should be 3. In most cases, some of these files, I think 1 or 2, I might have forgotten to upgrade it, so there's still 2, but most of them should be 3. Doesn't really matter exactly what version it's, because we're doing the very basics, so we won't, for the most part, we won't run into those problems. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to open Thorny now, and we're going to start. Okay, so if you want to, so you can just watch. If you want to follow along, go to Hello World program, and then you could go to this place over here. You can remove that, and then you could write in the code if you want to see what code, what something does, and then click on run. Okay, and yeah, and there are some instructions over here if you want to follow. Okay, now let me go back to Thorny, and we'll begin. Okay, so the very first thing in any kind of language, and when I say any kind of language, I even mean human languages, right? So when I'm talking to you right now, I'm saying words and you're listening to the words, right? And that's how you can understand what I'm saying, right? So the basic method of communication is input output, right? What I say is the output. What you listen through your ears is input, and then your brain processes that, right? It recognizes, understands, hopefully, if you can understand my English, and then it processes, and then there is some kind of output. So maybe you speak back, you respond, or you type, which is also output from you, or you could be taking down notes, or you could just be thinking, and hopefully it registers, and then you remember it, right, for the future. So so that's the basis of communication. It's just that with human beings, we don't really think of it as input and processing and output, right? That's how computers deal with it, right? That's explicitly with computers. So the very first thing we need to do is we need to be able to tell a computer to say something, right? That's the very basis of communication, to say, let's say hello, right? When you learn a new language, the first thing you do is, how do you say hello? How do you say good morning? How do you say good evening? These are the things you start off with, right? So the way you do that in Python is using what is called a function, right? So print is the name of the function, and print means to display text, display something, some data, some value onto what is called a console. I'll show you what the console is in a minute. Okay? And so when we say print, we are telling Python to do something. We're giving Python a command. We're saying, do this, right? And any function does that. We're going to see lots more functions in the future. This is the first command we're learning. We're telling Python to do something, right? Print. And then if I say, if I give you an incomplete sentence, and if I say, can you give me, and I don't end the sentence, right? I just say, can you give me, your response will be, well, what do you want, right? What do you want? You have to finish the sentence. Can you give me what? Can you give me coffee? Can you give me a cup? Can you give me a pen? Can you give me something, right? So in the same way, when we use print, we have to tell Python will be like, so if I run this, and we'll run that, nothing happens, right? Because Python is saying, you're telling me to print nothing. Okay, there you go, nothing, right? Can you give, so you have to, if you want Python to print something, you have to tell it what to print, right? So let's try putting in something, right? Let's try putting in a number. So I put a number 234. You can put whatever number you like, and then press on click run. Okay, and there you can see down here. This is called, so it's called shell over here. Over here, you can do the same thing on Trinket, right? Put in a number here, any number. Click on run, and on Trinket it shows on the right, right? 557, and over here it prints it down. It does the same thing. Okay, so now I want you to try and practice that, right? Go to the next line, and this time I want you to try making slight differences. So this time, instead of print with a lowercase p, try print with a higher case p and see what happens, right? I'm going to put another number this time. Okay, so the first thing you notice in Thorny is that the color is different, right? So this color is purple, pink purple, and this color is black, right? So that tells you that, oh, there's something, it's not the same thing, there's something wrong, okay? And Trinket might have a different color. Let's see what color it is. I won't always go back and forth between both, but initially I will, right? So in Trinket, it even highlights that, right? And it gives you a message. It says print is not defined, okay? And the same thing happens if I run that here, right? It says print is not defined. Okay, so what this means is that the moral of this story is that Python is very, very strict about using the correct form of language, right? So when I'm talking to you, if I use bad English, right, or if I'm, let's say I speak to you in Portuguese or Spanish or whatever, and I use wrong language, right, unless it's really, really wrong, you probably could still understand what I want to say, what my intention is, and you will understand it and respond back, right? And typically with human beings, that is the case, right? We tend to overlook mistakes. In Python, not so, right? With Python is very strict, right? This Python interpreter very strict. You have to use correct language, otherwise it's not going to process it, right? So here, the correct language means it has to be the word print, and it has to be all lowercase, like not capital, not uppercase p, but lowercase p, right? exactly like this. That's how it has to be. Okay. Okay. Now I want you to try something else, right? Try another number, and this time use a decimal point. Like use what is called a float, right? A floating point number. And yeah, go ahead. You have a question? If you have a question, feel free to ask. Okay, so now I've printed out a number, a whole number, an integer. I've printed out a number with a decimal point. Okay, and now let's try and print out the word hello. Okay, so I'm printing out the word hello, and you can see that this is red, this is red, and this is black. Okay, interesting. So let's observe that. Maybe it means something, maybe it doesn't mean anything. Okay, let's not worry about that for now. Let's just observe that the color is different. Okay, and if I run that, now I get a very similar, actually not a very similar, a different message, and it tells me name hello is not defined. Okay, so what's happening here is we're telling Python, right, print, and we're saying print what? Print hello. Okay, and Python is coming back saying, I don't know what hello means, right? What we're expecting to see is the word hello here, right? Just hello. I want you to print hello. And so this is another difference between communicating with Python and communicating with another human being, right? When you communicate with Python, you have to if you want Python to respond back with some kind of text like hello, for example, you have to surround it in quotes. Okay, so I've got double quotes here. I've got print. I've got double quotes, open, close, and then I've got the word hello in that. Okay, and now if I run that, okay, now you can see that it's printing. It's like, oh, okay, you want me to print the word, you want me to print exactly what hello means, right? Because otherwise, hello it's assuming that hello means something else. It's not defined, right? You got to define what hello is, and we'll get to that in a bit. Okay. Let's go back to, I just want to make sure that I'm on track. So we've got hello world. Okay. So the next thing to keep in mind is these double quotes, right? So we've got print hello, and then we've got double quotes over here, right? What happens if I put single quotes? So this time, go ahead and change it. It says hello, make it say something else, right? Whatever you want to say, like good morning. It doesn't have to be English also, right? Let's do Portuguese. Bon dia. Okay. Okay, it can be any language. Okay, run that. Okay, you can see that you can write it in, you can use double quotes and you can use single quotes. Okay, it doesn't mind. Now, and go ahead and play around with these, right? So go ahead, add some more text, add some more numbers, mix it up, right? Okay, next. Why do you think? Not why do you think? Do you think there's a reason why we would want double quotes over single quotes? Or do you think there's a reason why we should use single quotes and not double quotes? Okay, there are some reasons, and I'll show you that. Okay? So what happens if I wanted to print? I'm going to type the word here that I want to see outside. Okay, I'll type it over here. Okay, I want to print a word that has a single quote in it. So I'm doing fine, for example, right? I want to print this exact text. Oh, I lost it. I'm doing fine. Okay, so let's say how are you, right? How are you? How are you? Okay, if I had to print that out, no problem. Print it out. Use double quotes or single quotes, and I want the response to be I'm doing fine. Okay, so in English now we have this, right? We have a single quote here, which is part of the sentence, right? So I could remove that, and now I could print it. We're using single quotes now, and I'm going to print it, and it works fine. Oops. Extra single quote. Okay, so it works fine, but I want a single quote over here, right? So let's add that and see what happens, right? So I'm going to put a single quote here, and immediately one of the things you notice is the color changes, right? So we've got some weird thing happening. So this is green, right? This is all green, then we've got some black here, and then we've got some green again, and this whole thing is highlighted. Okay, and trinket might look a little different, but the moment you see these kind of different colors going on, you know that something is wrong, right? And what's happening here is when on line 4, okay, on line 4, what the deal with Python is, which is the language that Python understands, the interpreter of Python understands, is that when you start with a single quote, you have to end with a single quote. If you start with a double quote, you got to end with a double quote. Okay, you got to match, the quotes have to be the same. So on line 6, now there's a problem here, right? Because Python thinks that we're starting here and then ending here, right? Because that's the rule, right? Python, and this is the arranged rule that if you start with a single quote, you got to end with a single quote. So then all of this is, Python is like, I don't know what to do with that. Like, I know you want me to print I, but I don't know what you want me to do. I don't know what you want me to do after that, right? So here is a good example where we defined and we said we're going to be using single quotes to start and end, right? And so this is one case where you cannot use single quotes, right? You got to use double quotes. So I'm going to go to the beginning and the end, and I'm going to put double quotes, right? And so this is an example where you have to use double quotes, okay? If you use single quotes, you're going to get an error, okay? And in the same way, you can think of a sentence that has double quotes in them, right? Let's say she said hello, okay? So when you're quoting someone, when you're reading a book, you see that very often. You have she said or she said whatever, and then you're quoting someone. You have a quote, right? An exact quote. So again, here you can see that there's a color difference, right? And so this here the rule is if you start with a double quote, you got to end with a double quote. And so the Python interpreter, it's that the thing that understands the Python, is saying, I don't know what's after this. Like what is this? Doesn't make sense. All of this stuff, right? All of this doesn't make sense, right? Because that's the rule. So here is an example where you got to use single quotes. Okay. So keep that in mind. You can use single quotes and you can use double quotes, but if the text that you're printing out has a single quote in it or has a double quote in it, then you have to. Okay, I got muted. Did I just get muted, or did you hear all of this, or I don't know, I just got muted. Okay. Cool. Okay, so moving on. One of the other things that you'll see a lot and that you'll use a lot is what are called comments. Okay. So I'll show you what a comment means. I'm going to, let's say I want to write a comment about this following line, right? Print an integer. Okay, or here is how you can print an integer, right? So you can clearly tell that this is English, right? This is not Python, right? This is English. And I might want to put it over here because I'm explaining how to print an integer, right? But the problem is if I run that, Python is going to try and understand what this is. And eventually, because Python doesn't understand English, it understands Python. Actually, whenever I say Python, I mean the interpreter. The interpreter is the thing that understands Python language, right? So the interpreter it will eventually run into an issue because it doesn't speak English, right? It speaks Python. So how you get around something like that is you start with a hashtag. You put a hashtag in the beginning, and then that's telling Python, forget about everything else that's on this line. Till the end of the line, just ignore it. Don't even worry about it. Okay. And you can see that Thorny makes it gray. Okay. Trinket might make it something else, right? But Thorny makes it gray. So that's how you know. That's how you know that. That's how you know how to put comments, right? You could also put comments. Doesn't have to be at the beginning of the line. It could be at the end of the line. I could put a comment over here that says this is print float. Float is another word for number with decimal point. okay? And then here, print some text, okay? So we're printing some text, and you can see here that I put hashtags at the end here, and here I put a hashtag at the beginning, right? So if I run that, it's going to print all of this the way it did before, right? But it's not going to throw an error because even though this is not valid Python, if I remove that hashtag, now it's going to throw an error. It's going to say, I don't know what print means, right? And if you even if you put a lowercase p, now it knows what lowercase print means, but eventually it's going to throw an error, right? It's like, you remember you're supposed to put like an open bracket, open parentheses, and it doesn't see that. So it's saying this is not valid Python. I don't know what you're talking about. So that's why if you want to type in some kind of text or something like that, and you want Python to ignore it, you put a hashtag. Okay, and so that concludes model 1. Let me quickly go here. Beyond Hello World is basically some homework. There is something called ASCII art, which I'd like you can go ahead and Google and see what that means. And then so here there are some exercises for you to do. So you can go down, edit this trinket, do the exercise, and then submit it, and then I can give you feedback. Okay. Moving on to module 2. So we're going to rush through these modules, and it may be a little fast. If you have questions, you can ask me. You can watch the recording. You can follow along on the guide over here. Okay. So let's see. Let me leave this here so I know I'm not distracted. Okay. Cool. Opening back to Tony. Any questions so far? Anyone has any questions? Am I going too fast? Am I going too slow? Am I going just right? Is everyone understanding?
For me, I think it's little confusing that how to know where double column is, double quote is to be used, where this capital letter or small letter to be used. Is like any guideline for the same where we can
So
learn.
yeah, so for these functions, almost all functions have to have all lowercase. Okay. So
Okay.
any kind of functions. So now we've learned print, and there'll be some other functions that we learn along the way. And for all of them, it has to be all lowercase. Okay, that's a general rule.
Okay.
And in case of double quotes or single quotes, you can use whatever you like. So you can, in this case, I decided to start with double quotes. You can use double quotes. I could have made the single quotes, and it would still work.
So there will
Exactly
be no
fine.
difference.
The difference, the reason why there are two quotes is when you have these complex cases, right? So if you have a single quote, then then you have an option, an easy option in print it, right? So, and if you have a double quote that you want to print out, then you have an option, right? So you have some options to do that. And of course, the challenge is if you need to do single quote and double quote. And I'll come to that. Actually, I'll come to that right now. Let's say
Okay.
let's say I have a text that I said. She said, "Hello, I'm doing fine too," something like that, right? So now I have an example here. I want to print this entire thing, and this has a double quote and a single quote. So now what do you do, right? If I put single quotes, right, it's going to throw an error here, and if I put double quotes, then it's going to throw an error here, right? So what do you do in that case? So there is a concept in Python and other programming languages called an escape character. Okay, so an escape character is this backslash. So not the forward slash. This thing is a forward slash. This thing is a backslash. Okay, so keep that in mind. So a backslash is called, in this case, it's called an escape character. So you're escaping, you're telling Python, you escape from the normal rules. That's basically what you're saying, right? So in this case here, we're starting with a double quote. And the normal rule says that if you put another double quote, then that means you're ending the text that you want to print out, right? But if I put a backslash here, that's basically telling Python the very next character, just only one character, the following character, is going to not follow the normal rules, and it's going to have special rules. Okay, so in this case, and depending on the character, each character has a different special rule, right? So in this case, what you're saying here is, if you put a double quote, you're telling Python, or Python understands, it's like, oh, you want me to actually print out a double quote, right? You're not ending the text. The text is still going on, and you want me to actually output the double quote, right? Same thing with here. We've got two double quotes. The first double quote is part of the text that we want to print out. The second double quote is what is saying, I'm done with the text to print. You're telling the print statement, I'm done with printing out the text, right? So this is the first double quote. You put a backslash there, right? So that's saying now it's telling the interpreter the very next character, which is this one, I want you to treat it specially. Okay, escape from the normal rules and treat it specially, which in this case means actually print it out. Don't close the string. I'm not done with the string. So now if I run that, you can see that this prints out the double quote and it prints out the single quote without an error, right? Does that make sense? Do you understand?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So if you're confused, feel free to ask any questions and I can. Okay. Now, the next thing we're going to do is, um, sometimes what happens is, let's say I'm adding. Oh, I forgot to show you with numbers. One of the other uses that the print function has is you can actually do a lot of math. Okay, so now over here, I'm adding two numbers. Okay, so go ahead and do something. You can add any numbers, right? So I'm adding these two numbers here, and you can see that it actually prints out the number, right? It actually calculates the number and then it prints it out. Okay, now this is the so now I'm going to show you why I'm using Thorny. So this is something that Trinket does not do, but it's not important if you're writing code, right? If you're programming and all of that for real, it doesn't really matter. But if you're teaching or learning Python, then Thorny. If you're teaching Python, for sure you should use Thorny. If you're learning Python, you could use Thorny on the side just to understand how things work, right? So here's something, right? So I've saved, you need to save the file, which I have. And then I can put what is called a breakpoint, right? So I made this red dot here. And then what I can do is I can run this code line by line, and there's only one line here. I can use it line by line, and then I can break it down. And so you can see now how Python is thinking. This is how Python's brain works, right? This is how Python's brain works, right? So you're actually breaking down the calculation. So this is how it evaluates, right? So step into, so it first does the thing that's in yellow, right? So this math over here, it's going to process that first, okay? And in order to process that whole thing, now it has to break it. It likes to break down things into groups, right? So now it's breaking down this thing, right? So it's saying, okay, I'm going to calculate what 234 means, which is just 234. There's nothing to calculate there, right? But it needs to do that step. Then it has to calculate what this other number is, which again, it's just a number, so there's nothing to calculate there. But it could be, right? It could be a more complex thing. Then we step into, and it's like now that Python knows what each individual amount is, now it can calculate the whole thing. And so it calculates it to be 23,700, right? So now that it's done that, now it can evaluate or print the whole thing. Now Python knows what to print, right? So it's going to print all of that, and then it prints that over here, and then we're done. Don't worry about the none for now. Okay, so that is, and I won't run this through all the time, but if you have Thorny, you can do it with any code, and you can break down lines, you can go through step by step and see how Python processes it, right? So you can have numbers, right? And suppose I want to create a calculator that adds two numbers, right? So I can say, print 234 plus 23466, whatever. Now I want to change that. So I change this number here, and I change this number here, and now I get the result, right? And I can keep doing that, and it works, but it's not really the best way of doing things, right? Wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be a lot cleaner? Is if we had some kind of, there are two things here. There's a number, there's one number here, and there's another number here. There are two numbers here, right? So a better way of writing this is if we do what is called a variable, and I'll show you what that means. Okay, so I'm creating one it's called a variable, okay? I'm calling it num1, which is short for number. And then I'm creating another one called num2, and then I'm putting it, giving it a different value. And then I'm adding these two. So I'm going to put num1 plus num2. Okay, so I'm adding these two values. And then if I run that, you can see that it displays the amount. Okay, now let me break it down. So what's going on here? We've rewritten what we had done before. It's kind of the same, right? Except that we've made a few changes, right? We've created this, what is called a variable, created a variable called num1. And you can see that over here, and this is another thing which Tony has. It gives you a list of all of these variables, right? So a variable, so the question is, what is a variable, right? You can see some calculators also have a variable, right? It's like a short-term memory, a short-term memory. If you want the computer to remember certain things for some time, right, then this is how it does it, through variables, right? So it has, the way the memory thing works is, think of it as a box. Okay, so you've got a box, and the box has a name, and the box has a value. Okay, and something else which we'll get to, but it has a name and a value. So there's name here and there's a value. So think of variables as a box with a name and a value. Right? So this box is called num1. That's the name of the box, num1. And the value of it is what is inside the box. Right? So what is inside the box is a number, which is 234. Okay. And here I'm creating another box, another variable, calling it num2, right? And then equals means I'm saying that put this into the box, right? Put this number into that box. So now I've got num1 and I've got num2. And then when I print, right, I can, instead of printing the actual numbers, I can just say print num1. I can use the name of the variable, and then I can print this other name of the variable. So I'm saying print num1 plus num2. Okay, and it does that. And I can change the values. Now I don't need to mess with this whole line, which is a little complicated, right? It's still simple, but imagine you could have a much more complex line here, which could be, it could be, you know, plus, minus, and multiplication. Imagine if there was, you were calculating something complex, right? You don't want to keep messing with the values here. So here's the benefit of having num1 and num2. You can just change the values here and run the code, and you don't even have to touch line 4, right? Line 4 just works. So so that's one of many benefits of num1 and num2. Okay, so these are called variables. And if I go here, where's the, oh, I have it over here. Okay. Right. So these are called variables and variable assignments. Okay. So assignment means we are assigning this variable, this value to this variable, giving it a name. Okay. Assigning this value to this variable. Okay. Cool. So the next concept that's important is, well, there are variable rules, right? So let's say, for example, why did I call it num1, right, as one word? What happens? Why not like this? Okay, why not like number 1 and number 2, right? This would be a lot more like how we would read it, right? I've got number 1 and I'm calling it that. I've got number 2, I'm calling it that. And then number 1 plus number 2, right? That's why not that, right? Maybe why not even uppercase number, right? This is how it would look a lot better for human beings, right? But you can already see that there's some problems here, right? This is black, this is red, I don't know, and you can see there's a number change over here, a color change over here, and if I run that, it's throwing an error. You know, it's saying invalid syntax. Whenever you see the word syntax, that's like grammar. Okay, that's for programming languages, that's the grammar of programming language. So this is saying there's a grammatical mistake, and I already mentioned the interpreter is very particular about grammar, right? You cannot make mistakes. So one of the rules here is that you cannot have spaces. That's a rule. In Python, you cannot have spaces. So if you remove all the spaces, now you can see that it's all black, and I can run it and no problem. Okay. So there are rules, and then there's another concept called conventions, right? I'm going to use comments over here to explain what I'm doing, right? So variable, rules, and conventions, right? what's the difference between rules and conventions, right? So rules are things that you must do. You have to do rules. If you don't do a rule, the program is not going to work. Okay. Conventions are something like rules, but it's more like, it's suggested. You should do it. It's good to do it, right? It's a good habit to do something. So that's a convention. Okay, so rule and convention. So the rule is that you cannot have a space in the variable name. The convention is that it should all be lowercase. Okay. Now, question is why, right? You can break the rule. If you want to use uppercase N, use uppercase N. The program will work, no problem. So the question is, what's the big deal with conventions, right? So the importance of conventions is that when your program gets more and more complicated, then you have different types of variables and function names. We've learned these two, and there are other things as well, right? So there are other things, and uh, an uppercase, something starting with an uppercase letter means something else. Okay, so although it works here, it works fine with an uppercase. If the program is really complex, it could confuse you at some point if you're editing your own code, or if someone else is writing a code, right? So if you look at someone else's code, right, and you see that there's a capital N, it'll be like, it means A, but really it means B, right? It means, you mean here it's supposed to be a variable, but you might think that it's a class, and we won't get into classes. But uppercase, starting with an uppercase capital letter, is for classes. That's the convention for classes. Okay. So just wanted to mention the difference between the two. All right. Okay. Now here's another concept. Okay. I'm going to run through this. So let's say I ask you, what's your name? And let's say your name is, I saw a lot of Marias. Okay, I'm going to go with Maria. Okay. And then if I say, can you spell Maria, but with all caps? Okay. Can you write down, if I ask you, can you write down the name Maria, but with all caps? You're like, yeah, easy, right? Or can you write down Maria with starting with capital M, and then the rest of it is all lowercase? Yeah, easy, right? Now, let's say I say, okay, tell me what is the current year? What year are we in right now? Okay, 2024. Okay, can you write down the current year in all capital letters? Okay, and then you might think like, okay, that doesn't really make sense. Okay, at least in English, and I guess most languages, all languages that I know of, numbers don't really have capital and small letters, right? So that's the first thing, right? It's like if I'm telling you to, if I'm using a name or some text or whatever, and I tell you, give me the capital letter, give me all lowercase, all uppercase, title case, which is the first letter should be capital. It makes sense for text. It doesn't make sense for numbers. Okay. What about if I tell you to do some kind of math, right? So if I say like take the current year and divide it by 2. Okay, you can say, okay, that I can do. 2024. Okay, divided by 2 in Python. Divided is the forward slash. By the way, I'm not writing Python code. I'm explaining, and I'm using this as a notepad. Okay, if I run this, it's going to throw errors. It's not supposed to be Python. I'm just explaining some things. I'll wipe it out, and then I'll write proper Python. So if I say, okay, take the current year and then divide it by 2. Okay, you can say, yeah, okay, I can do that. So that would be 1012. Right? You can do the math, and it will give you 1012. Cool. Okay. Take your name. Okay, let's say Maria, and divide that by 2. Okay, and then you're going to think like, okay, that doesn't really make sense. You cannot divide. You cannot use math on names and on text and on all of that, right? You can do it on numbers, but you cannot do it on text. So this doesn't really make sense, right? Even to us, right? If I tell you divide your name by 2, doesn't make sense. It's like I don't know what to do there. So same way, Python also deals with different pieces of data. You could call it pieces of data, right? So each of this is a piece of data, right? And Python treats each of these pieces differently. Okay, so these are what are called types, different types of data. Okay, so that's very, very important to Python. Now, you and I may not look at it as a big deal, but Python does, the interpreter does. You have to know what the data type is that you're working with. And we're going to come across some examples really soon about why the difference is. Okay, so let's remove all of that. And let's start with Maria again. I'm going to print out the name Maria and print it, prints out fine, no problem. If I can even, we've used variables now. So let's say name equals Maria. And I'm going to print out name. Okay, prints out Maria, no problem. Okay, and then let's print out another thing here. We looked at here, and that's 2024, right? And I can print out the name and the year. Okay, and you can see it's Maria 2024, no problem. We learned all of this, nothing new, right? Now, what about the type, right? What is the type of name and the type of year? Okay, so the type of name we can actually tell from it multiple things. One is it's green. Thorny makes it green. Trinket might give it a different color. Second is there are quotes around it, right? There is a double quote or single quote or mix of quotes and all of that, right? So that's how you know that this is what is called, Python calls it a string. Okay, so the string data type. Okay, year, for example, is a integer data type. Okay, and let's take another one. Let's call it pi. Okay, this is math we're talking now, 3.14. Okay, and this one, because it has a decimal point there, is a float data type. Okay, so string data type, integer data type, float data type. Okay, and now you might be thinking like, well, I don't believe you. Okay, how do you know? Maybe I'm just making this up. Okay, how do you how do we know that Python actually looks at all of this way, right? How do you know that Python calls this a string and Python calls this an integer and Python calls this calls pi a float? How do we know that? If you want to know what the type is, you can just ask Python. You could say, and here is where we get another variable. Instead of saying print name, okay, I'm going to show you another variable called type. Okay, and type is similar to print, right? You can see the color is the same. It's all lowercase, right? All lowercase, no capitals, open parentheses, close parentheses, and it's basically expecting type of something, right? It's like saying what is the type of, and if I don't say anything, you say like what is the type of what? You didn't finish your sentence. So that is the thing that goes inside over here. Okay, so name. Okay, and I'm going to remove the year for now, and I'm just going to have these two things. Okay, and I'm going to run that. Now, normally what I do is I ask the students to guess why it printed name, but it didn't print type, right? This type didn't go on the screen, but only name did, right? And we don't have much time, so I'm going to answer it. But if you do want to, you can answer and comment on the chat box. So the reason why is because a function is you're telling the interpreter to do something, right? So here we're telling Python, we're telling the interpreter, print out this on the console. Here we're telling it, give me the type of name. Okay, so we get back the type of name, right? But then we're not doing anything with it, right? So we have the type of name, but we have to do something with it, right? And I'll show you what that means. If I put a breakpoint here, and if I run that, okay, if I debug that, it goes all the way to wherever I put this point here, and now I can start analyzing this. So I'm going to step into that, okay, and now I'm going to find out what name is, which is Maria. You can see now how Python is thinking. Then Python is now going to see what the type of Maria is, which is, look at that, class of string. Okay, so it's working. It's telling me Python is saying that Maria or name, the type of name is string. str is short for string. Okay, but then nothing happens, right? And the reason is we're not doing anything with that information. We need to uh, we need to do something. We're getting back the type, and we have to do something. So we can say name type equals type of name. And now we have another problem here, right? Remember I said that there are rules, and the rule is that you cannot have a space in the name, right? So so I could remove that, and that's fine. But now we have two words, right? And it's a little confusing. So we use what is called an underscore, which is allowed for a variable. And we say name type is type of name, and then we can say print name. And now if I run that, it works fine, right? It prints string. Okay. Now over here you can also see the list of variables, right? Name, we've got name type, we've got pi, and we've got year. Okay. So this way now you can actually get you can find out what the type is, right? And the other reason it's important is if you try and mix them. So let's try and mix them, right? So and you can do the same for year and pi. Go ahead and do it. But if I try and multiply name times the year, right? So multiplication for Python is the asterisk key. Okay, division is like that. Minus and plus are the same. So if I go multiply name times the year, right? And if I run that, okay, look at that. What's happened there, right? So so it's allowed. Python, if I tell you to multiply the name by the year, it may not make sense to you, but to Python it makes sense. So what does it mean for Python? It means take actually 2024 is not a good example. Let's say it's the year 2, okay? And if I run that, now you can see it's printing Maria twice. Okay, if I put 10, it prints the name 10 times. Okay, so that's what the multiplication means when you mix a string and a year. Okay, so not what you would think. What about minus, right? Name minus year. Okay, that doesn't make sense. It's saying unsupported operand, don't worry about this word, for string and int. Okay, so string and int. So it's saying that you cannot minus. It's basically saying cannot minus, you cannot go string minus integer. You cannot do that, not allowed. Okay? So this is why I was saying it's important. It's important for Python to the type data type is important for Python. Okay? Cool. Now, if I wanted to say, if I wanted to print out, my name is Maria, and the year is let's put it back to 2024, right? Okay, so I'm going to print. I'm going to print this out, and it works fine. Okay, but now the reason we used variables in the first place is because we can actually use we don't have to use Maria here in 2024, right? Because if you change that and make this John, for example, now it's still going to say my name is Maria, right? But now I wanted to say my name is John. I wanted to say whatever name is, right? So the question is, how do you mix now? We are mixing, right? We're mixing, we want some text of our own, which is my name is, then we want some variables, and then we want some more text, and then we want another variable. So we want to mix and match all of these things and give it one big string, right? So how you do that is what is called an F string. Okay, so you put an F before there, okay? And then if you put an F string, then you can, inside of the string, you can surround, you can use these curly braces, okay, anywhere in the text. And then, so what it's telling Python, what this F does is, it says that whenever you come across an open open brace, then whatever's inside of there, it's something like the escape, right? You're kind of escaping. It's a kind of escape. You're escaping, and you're saying now whatever's here, I want you to evaluate. I want you to calculate and use your. Don't just put it to the console, but actually think about it, right? So if I put name here, okay, my name, okay, I put the word name there, and then I do the same thing over here, and I put year, right? Okay, and if I run that, now it's going to actually say my name is John and the year is 2024. let's say I change the year and I make it, we're way into the future, and this is, let's say, Anna, okay? And if I run that, now we get the new values, right? You see that? So it's actually using its brain. And I think in Trinket the color is different. Here it's a little confusing because it's all green, but in Trinket I think this color is actually different. You could see that. It doesn't really matter what the color is. So this is called F string, and there is a section there on F strings and what is called string formatting. So go ahead and you can take a look at that. Okay. Then the other thing is, and I'll just briefly touch on this, is I was talking about data types for Python. There are different data types, and the interpreter can perform functions. We've seen print as one of the function, and we've also seen type as another function, right? So there are these what are called functions, and there are some functions that are specially for strings. Okay, one of them is len, okay, which is short for length. Okay, and again, like all the other functions, you can see it has the name. It's all lowercase. You have to know what the name is. So len in this case, and then open and close parentheses, and then it's like asking what is the length of, and then if I say that to you, you're going to ask me of what. You have to complete your sentence, right? So that is what goes inside of this these parentheses. So you put a name there. Okay, so now Python knows, it's like, oh, you want the length of so you got to find out what the name variable is and then find its length. Okay, so and this works. You can see if I debug and if I go all the way there and if I step into, it calculates Anna, then it step into it. Now it's going to process this entire thing, and it's giving me 3 because A and A, right? There's three characters, right? So
You are mute, Jason.
oh, I'm on mute again. I don't know why I keep getting on mute. I'm not doing anything.
Now we can
Okay,
hear you.
so yeah. So same thing with type, right? It's calculating length correctly, but we're not doing anything. We're throwing the value away, right? We're getting it's calculating, the interpreter's calculating the length and then it's throwing the value away. So we got to catch the value and do something with it, right? And the best thing to do is to put it into a variable. So you can have something called name length. Okay. So we're saying calculate that and then put it into name length. Okay. And now watch what happens. I'm going to do a walk through this, and I want you to look at the variables section over here, right? We're creating a new variable here, and I'm going to quickly go through all of that. So we've calculated the length of name, which is 3, and now it's going to calculate this entire line, which is basically saying create a new variable, create a box, call the box has a name, call it name underscore length, and put the number 3, put the value of 3 inside of the box. Okay, so and then you can see here now, there's a new entry, name length, which is 3. Okay, so now we can actually use that name length in the code as many times as we want. So we can say print the word name. Okay, and remember you got to put the F before, otherwise it doesn't work. Okay, I'll show you what happens if you don't put the F. The word F is name length characters long. Okay. Okay, so I've got that. And now if I run that, it's not going to print what I wanted to print, right? It's actually printing exactly what I put over there because Python is very obedient if you follow the rules. And it's saying, oh, you want me to print this? I'm going to print this, right? But we have these special variables inside over here, right? That we wanted to use. And so we tell Python by putting the F for format, by the way, when we say, this is a special string, it's an F string, then it looks out, it's listening for these parentheses, right? And it's saying, oh, there's an open parentheses. Oh, let's actually calculate what's inside of this. Okay, so now if I run that, it works fine, right? And you can change this. So I'm going to change this, say like, like John, for example. Now this is going to say 4 and so on, right? Okay. So, so that is, so these are called string functions, and there are some more. If you look into if you look at the exercise there are some more string functions that you can get into. I will mention one more thing. Let me go back to here. So we mentioned the string function. We have print is a more sophisticated. It's a print function, but it also prints numbers and integers and all that, right? But you could think of it that. So in the functions we've seen so far, right? So type name, the len of name, right? These are all the functions we've seen. Type and length, if I run that, they're going to calculate, but they're not going to do anything. Right? We've seen that already. We have to save it, catch it, and put it into a variable, and then use it. So we've got these 3 uses now, right? Functions, and all of them have the same structure, right? It has the name, which is all lowercase. Then it has open parentheses. Then it has something in it, and then it has close parentheses, right? So this is the basic structure. Now, there are some other types of string functions that work slightly different, and I'll show you what I mean. Okay. So instead of, so there's one called upper. Okay. Look at that. There's another one called lower. Okay. And if I run that, it works fine. Doesn't do anything because I'm not doing anything with that code, right? But if I put the breakpoint here, and if I run that, and if I step into it, you can see that it calculates John first. Then it's going to do, so it does the left. Normally it does right to left, right? Now in this case, it's going left to right. Now it's doing the whole thing, and it's saying it's going to convert John into for his uppercase, right? So you can see it's all caps, John, right? All caps. And then of course we're not doing anything with it. Same thing with this, but now it becomes all lowercase, right? So these are called dot functions. Okay, these are both called dot functions, and they're kind of different, right? So in the normal function, you have the function name, parentheses, and then you put in the thing that you want to change inside of that. And in the dot function, you start off with the thing you want to change, and then you put a dot at the end of it, and then you put the name of the function, which is all lowercase, and then you put open and close, but then you don't have to put anything in there, right? And you could think of it as something like an English grammar, right? It already knows that, oh, you want me to work on the name because you've hooked on the dot. Think of this as a hook, right? The hook is on for the name variable. So it's saying, oh, you want me to convert the name into uppercase, right? So name uppercase equals, right? We give it a variable name, and then we can print it out. Right? We have to catch the result. It's doing the calculation, but we got to catch the result, save it into a variable, and then we can print it out. Okay, so I'm going to print it out there, and then if I run it, and you can see it's all uppercase. Okay. So tomorrow when we do the data, more of the data cleaning and all of that, we'll be using these dot functions a lot more, which is why I want to spend time with that. So okay, so moving on to module 3, I'm going to teach a new function. We've learned a few functions here, right? So let's go back to a simple code, which is name is equal to John, and then print name. Okay. Now, instead of print name, actually, let's print something better. I'm going to say your name is John. Oops, name. Okay, and it prints it out fine, and you can change it. You can put Pam, for example, and you can run that. Right? Now, the problem is that every time I run this program, I can run this program, I can press this run button 100 times, 1,000 times, or whatever, and it's going to be the exact same every single time, right? And that's no fun, right? When you look at apps, when you open apps and all of that, every time you run the app, you can do different things. You can click on it, you can type in things, and you can interact with the app, right? So think of, like, let's say WhatsApp. If you use WhatsApp, it would be a very boring and not a popular app if all you could do is open it and you see the exact same thing every time, right? no one would use that. But you can do things. You can click on things. You can search. You can send messages to people and all that, right? So one of the key characteristics of all applications is that every time you run it, it should potentially be able to act differently, right? And so one of the things that would be nice is you could maybe every time you run, maybe instead of assuming that the name is Pam or whatever you said here, maybe ask the user what the user's name is, right? Whoever's running the code, ask them what the name is. So every time you run that, I should be able to type in different names and it should give me a different result every single time. Okay. So how do we do that? There's another function called input. Okay, same like print. See that it has the entire name of the function in all lowercase, and then you have the open and close parentheses, right? And this is, you could think of it as like ask the user, right? Ask the user something, right? What is the something? Ask them what. Okay, so that goes over here. So you can say what is your name? Okay, and if I run that now, you can see that it's actually asking me a question. I can actually type something in there, right? So it's asking me a question, what is your name? And I can type my name, right? And now it gives me an error, which is it's saying name is not defined. And the reason why is because it's an F string and I haven't really defined name, right? But if I remove that, now it should work. What is your name? Type my name. Uh, Good, right? It doesn't work the way I want it to work, but you can see that what the input function does is it asks the user for whatever you put in here. You can type in whatever you like over here. Right? It's asking the question basically. So now if I debug this uh, over here, putting this red dot, okay, and then if I step into, okay, so it's going to ask me the question there. Okay, I type in the answer, and then um, I put run. Okay, oh, I have to, sorry, let me go again. Debug, step into, okay. So I type in my name and then I press enter. Okay, and then it basically, it's calculated that whole line to be my name, Joseph, right? And then if I step into again, it doesn't do anything because same as type and everything. It's like, it calculates it fine, but you're not doing anything. You got to, it's like it's throwing the result and you're not catching it, you're not storing it, you're not doing anything with it, right? So ideally you want to store it into a variable. Okay, so that's when you put a variable and you call it name, right? And so now it's saying that whatever the user types in, store that into the variable here. And then now we can use the F string, okay, and it's going to now print out the name, right? So now I can run that, okay, and it's going to say John, and I can run that again, and you can say Pam, and I can run that again, you can say Maria, and you can run this as many times as you want, and every time, depending on what you type in, the result could be different, right? And so this is, and then one small change, you can see here that there's no space over here because what happens is it asks for that and it's waiting right here at the end. So generally what you do is you put a space there and then now it looks a little better, right? You don't have to do it, but it just looks a little better. Right? Okay. Now, what is the use case for this, right? We actually, all of us use these types of things all the time. It's just that the type of language is different and the medium is different and all. So they're not using Thorny or Trinket or whatever. It's a more complicated thing, which is when you're logging into a website, right? So you could say username equals input, username, password equals password, right? And then you could say like you could say welcome username, your password is normally you don't see this. This is not a good practice to actually show the password, but I'm just giving you an example of something about how it's actually there, right? So you can put a username, you could put like hello, whatever, and password, my password is not a good password, but you can see that something like that is, is let's say you're changing your password, right? So if you're changing your password, you type in your new password, and you can say, your new password is set. And generally, you would do something else with that information. You would save it into a database or something. But this is one I'm just showing you a use case of something where some form of input is going to be used. Right? Any questions? By the way, feel free to ask. And all of this is on that website. Uh, if you're not on Trinket, let me know. I'll have to share all those details again. But all of this is over there with all exercises and everything. Okay. Right. Arithmetic operators, we've already done that, right? So we've seen printing, or you could also say sum num1 equals some number, and then num2 equals another number, and then you can do various things, right? You can do num1 plus num2, right? And then I'm just going to copy it to speed up the process. But you can minus, you can go multiplication, and you can go division, right? You can, and there are some more. So these are the four most popular types, right? So you can calculate and do calculations with it. Okay. Now, how about if remember we said that what makes a program interesting is every time you run the code, the results are different, right? But here we've got the results the same all the time. Okay, so wouldn't it be nice if instead of uh, making the numbers the same every single time, let's use the new function that we've learned, which is input, right? And then we're going to say enter the first number, enter the first number, right? And then here we go input, enter the second. Okay, so we've got two numbers now. Okay, enter the first number, enter the second number, and it should work, right? It looks correct, nothing wrong with that. But it doesn't. Let's say I put a simple number like 23 and another number, say 56. Okay, you should see, 23 plus 56, 23 minus 56 times 50, and so on, right? But you get an error, right? Why? It's saying that we're trying to do math on two strings, which brings us to a very interesting question. What is the data type of num1 and num2? Right? We never did that. The input function prompts the user first to type in something. The user types in something. It comes back with a value, and then that value is stored in the num1 and num2 variable. But what is that value? Right? So I'm going to print. I'm going to say num1 type equals type of num1, and num2 type equals type of num2. Okay. Then I'm going to print that. I'm going to say print num1 type, print num2 type. Right. So we're printing both the types. Okay. And you can see, I can type in whatever number I want, and it's saying they're both strings. That's interesting. Okay. It's showing strings. And so this brings us to the rule, or the Python's deal basically, which is that the input function always gives back a string. No matter what you type in, even if you type in a number, it's always going to be a string. Okay. So what do you do, right? We're doing math over here, right? So we want integers and floats and all of that, right? So we can say like enter the first number, but let's say that now we want integers. Okay, so how do we do that? We have to change the number from one type to another type, right? So we want to change it from a string, because it's a string right now. We want to change it to an integer, let's say, right? So we have num1 as an int. I'm just giving that the variable name, and the name of a function. So here's a new function, right? We've got import and print and type and len and all these functions. Here's another function, which is int. Int is short for integer, right? And again, like all of them, like if you tell Python, change this into an integer, Python is going to say change what to an integer. You got to tell me what you want to change, right? So I want to change num1 into an integer, okay? And same thing with num2, int of num2. So now I'm changing num1 into an integer, putting it here, num2 as an integer, putting it here. And what I'm going to do is run the code till here. I got to type the numbers. Okay, and you can see, so we could actually break through all of that, but if you just look over here, here's very interesting, right? So you can see that we have num1, which is 23, but there are quotes around it, right? That's another indication that it's a string. And if you look at num1 int, okay, now there are no quotes around it, okay? In fact, you could even print the type of num1 int, and you would see that it says integer, okay? Same with num. So now if you run the rest of it, it works fine. Another issue, what's going on here? So what is happening here is I have changed the integer into an int. I mean, I've changed the string into an integer. But when I'm actually printing the stuff down here, I'm still using num1 and num2, right? But instead of that, now I should be using the num1 underscore int and num2 underscore int. Okay. So now if I run that, it gives me a number. Oops. Okay, it gives me a number. Okay, so now it said both are strings, yeah, but it's calculated all of the numbers. Okay, so this is called type conversion, right? Type conversion means you're changing it from one type to another. Okay, and then if you, let's say, you could also change it to a float, right? So now it's an integer, but what if you wanted to change it to a float? You could just add the word float there. Float, float. So now it's changing it to a float, which means that I can also use a decimal point, right? And it would work really well with decimal points, right? So that's what a float does. Okay, so where are we now? Data types variables, that's done. You can look at so module 2 is done. Module 3 is also done. The exercise for module 3 is you're converting a number from one type to another, Celsius to Fahrenheit, Fahrenheit to Celsius. You could say enter the temperature in Celsius, and then it calculates into Fahrenheit, the other way around. Okay, then we've got now we're going to module 4. Okay, try and rush this. Not too much though. So if you have any questions, please ask. I can. I'm assuming everyone's following, or yeah. Okay. So quick recap. When you print something that Python is expecting, okay, and these are all examples that Python is expecting, it gives you back something meaningful, right? It gives you back something meaningful. If you don't print out something that Python is expecting, like some gibberish, then it gives you an error message and says something like, name is not defined. It gives you something like this, like some error message, right? What about if I put the word true, okay, or if I put the word false? Okay, look at that. It should, right? Does make sense because it's not a number. True and false is not a number. Doesn't have a decimal point. There's no double quote. There's no single quote, right, around it. This should have thrown an error, right? But it doesn't. So this means that these values, true and false, right, and capital T, right? So even if I put lowercase t, it throws an error, right? It's saying I don't know what true is. Yeah, I don't. It's not defined. I don't know what that means. So there's something very special about this true and false, and it's only these two things. Okay, so let's find out what this are. Right. So my mystery variable equals true. Okay, I'm creating a variable, calling it my mystery variable because I don't know what this type is. It's a new type, new data type. I don't know what it is, and I'm going to assign to true, and I can print it. Right, I can print uh, lazy to type there. I can print my mystery variable, and it prints true. Okay, so what's the data type here? Right, how do we find that out? So I'll just call it MMV, which is my mystery variable type, right? Equals the type of, right? We've learned this function already. Okay, so we are calculating the type, and then we're storing it. It's throwing back the type of the variable. We're storing it into another variable, which is called MMV type. And then I want to print the MMV type, right? So I need to know what this mystery variable type is. So if I run that, you can see that this is class bool, boolean. Bool is short for boolean. Okay, so bool or boolean. Okay, and if maybe you studied maths or something like that, you've heard of this guy called Boole in the 18th century or whatever, and kind of like the foundation for all computers, right? Computers, if you maybe you've heard of this, that all computers actually think in terms of ones and zeros, right? So these are different ways of what it basically means is that the value can only be something, can only be two values, right? So you can say true or false. You can say one or zero. Say yes or no. You say on or off, right? So these kinds of things, right? And not all things are like that, right? So if I ask you like, what's your favorite color? Okay, your answer is not going to be. It's not like we only have two colors to deal with, right? There are millions and billions of colors, right? So you can say pretty much anything, right? Uh, but there are some questions which the answer is always it's one or the other. It cannot be both, right? So for example, like what's a good example, right? Are you in maybe a country name, right? Are you in India? Are you in the US? Are you in Canada? Are you in Spain? Are you in Portugal? Are you in whatever country, right? Are you in pick a country? And the answer to that, and you say right now, are you in that country right now? The answer is going to be either yes or no. Right? Either you are there or you're not there. That's it, right? And so many of these types of like, is it raining outside? Right? You could say like, okay, it's raining slightly, or it's not raining. It's raining. You could say it's raining slightly, or you could say I don't know also. But the reality is that either it's raining or it's not raining. Even if one drop of water falls on the sky, it's technically raining, right? It's yes, you can go out for a walk and everything, but it's raining. So some of these questions can either be one value or the other, true or false, one or zero, yes or no. Right? So think like a switch, like a fan switch, right? It's either on or it's off, right? And you could say like, okay, I can turn it low, I can speed up the fan or slow down the fan. Yeah, but it's on, right? Or it's off. It's one of the two, right? So any switch that you have in your house that you can turn on and off, that falls under this thing of boot. Okay? So now we got to see, now that we know this, what are the types of questions that we're dealing with Python that can either be true or false, right? And and that brings us to what are called comparison operators. Okay, so for example, you could say print uh, 4, take any number, is less than, and take any other number. If 4 is less than 23, okay, this is the less than sign here. Okay, and if I run that, I get a true. Okay, so if you use what are called comparison operators, like less than, greater than, and we see there's a list of all of them, right? The result of that is going to be true or false. So this is a Boolean question, right? It's a yes or no question. So now let's do that again. Let's say num1 equals pick a number, num2 equals pick another number, right? And then we're going to show you all the comparison operators that we can do with that, right? So we've got less than, we've got greater than, we've got equal to, but we've got double equal to. And I'll show you what this, I'll tell you why we have two equal to's over here. But for now, just bear with me, right? So we've got less than, greater than, equal to, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, right? And there's actually one more called not equal to, but let's not use that. It's not a very popular one. So so if I run that, you're going to get true, false, whatever. True, false, false, true, false, right? And that's the answer. If you actually look at it, is number one less than number two? Yes, that's true. Is number one greater than number two? False. No. Is number one equal to number two? No. So false. Is number one less than or equal to? Yes, true. Is it greater than or equal to? False, right? So the answer to any of these kinds of questions is either true or false. Okay, and so these are what are called comparison operators. You don't have to remember that, but just you're comparing two numbers, right? Is it less than, greater than, whatever? And you're comparing numbers. Uh, let's not get into other types of like strings and all that, right? You're comparing two numbers here. Are we done with time? Does it end now or does it end in the half an hour?
Is it over? Yeah, we are 5 minutes ahead.
Oh, we're already 5 minutes over. Okay.
Yeah.
So let me stop sharing and let me just close out for now. So I had to, so hopefully it wasn't too fast. There is a recording. You can go through it. The course that I have is self-paced, so you can follow it by yourself. It has all of the explanations and everything there. You can ask me questions through that app, through email. I don't know. I'll just put my email over here, but you can always email me. Even after the course is over, I'm more than happy to help you get through it. In tomorrow's session, I'm going to continue with this, and then we'll move on to the more complex things, which is we're getting closer to data visualizations and machine learning and artificial intelligence and all that are more advanced concepts. It's out of scope for this, but this is kind of like definitely a prereq. Once you do this, then it becomes easy to move on to those other more complex things, right? Also, maybe this is just an introduction, and you can do a course. There are lots of courses out there. Bakshish mentioned some Coursera, Udemy, all that, right? So there are much bigger, like 10 hours, 20-hour courses, because these things can take time. We have limited time now, but yeah. So this is, hopefully you've learned something from it. I can stay back for questions if you want, or we can end and we can come back tomorrow and continue with where we left off.
Yeah, thank you, Gerson. It was a very informative session, and thank you everyone for attending, for participating. So yeah, let's meet tomorrow at 8:30 CET and share the attendance sheet as well. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very
Bye,
much.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.